once again, I want to thank Wizards Ghost. Thank you so much for sponsoring this weekend. Like maybe a feature creator. I'm not really doing anything directly with Arena right now, so I don't actually know if I have to disclose that, but better safe than sorry. But yeah, if you want to check out the stuff I actually did with Arena that they actually sponsored me for, check out Lily's Lounge and the drafts I'm putting up there starting, and like the last video I did on just cracking a bunch of packs in Arena. I'm not talking about that right now, but we are talking about Magic and stuff that will be coming to Arena, even if it's not like directly Arena content. And just sparing the preamble, I'm doing another Amara deck tech. You might know that I did an Amara deck tech like a month ago. That was my like Miscellaneous theme deck that I actually built in paper. But this is a very different Amara deck. Actually, it's not that different. It's actually very similar in a lot of ways, but it is my brand new Amara. That is not how my Emmara Brawl deck. So, for those of you who are not aware, Brawl is marked to come out sometime this month on Arena, which is going to be really cool. For those of you really out of the loop, Brawl is a format which is essentially a standard commander. So one, like you have a commander, but you're only playing with the cards in standard. Arena currently only has 1v1, unfortunately. But they have said that it is confirmed that they are working on multiplayer, which will be sweet, and I'm looking forward to it. But for the time being, it is standard. It is 1v1. So it's starting at 25 life, in Access Commander. But 1v1, you do have to plan for some different eventualities. Like, you typically want to be a bit more proactive, a bit more aggressive. Aggro is a lot more viable, and this is kind of what this is. This is Amara tokens, obviously, because, and I'm doing this one first. I actually have like 5 decks prepped that I might do more deck techs on, that I'm going to be building, that if people are interested and want to hear them, and I'll talk about more at the end. But essentially, with kind of what you got to know is that either you really want to be you need to be focused on either just getting down in there, getting in there, and pure aggro is hard because you're still at 25 life, so you probably want to be more like aggro mid-range, which is kind of what this is. You can't just play mono red burn, and like it's not gonna work, because like that 5 extra life is a lot. And also there aren't really that many good burn commanders in the format right now. Like, Torbrand's fine, like, yeah, I mean, like, Torbrand's probably decent if you want to play mono red, but I don't know. I don't want to play mono red and thing. I play mono red because I want to get my dailies fast, not because I play Brawl because I want to play Magic. So you want to be a bit more proactive. You want to be probably running a lot more spot removal. Like, it's not like Commander or like multiplayer formats where it's like, yeah, you want board wipes and spot removal, maybe a bit less. This is when you want your spot removal, because you want to deal with your opponent's stuff that they're doing. And especially kind of like they're like linchpin pieces, like they're commanders that you want to deal with. But this is kind of like an aggro sort of mid range, like it has like some nice like finishers and reach, and that's kind of the idea. But with Amara, Soleil the Accord at the helm, Amara is only 2 mana, which is actually very nice just because she's a commander that you can cast 2, 3, 4 times in the game. But she's a 2 mana 2/2. And whenever she comes tapped, you make a 1 with lifelink. Typically in this deck, this is going to mean whenever she attacks. There's a few Convoke cards and a few other ways to tap her outside of that, but realistically you're going to have to attack with her. And honestly, since you have access to her again and again, and she's not that expensive, you're happy trading her off and doing that stuff as long as you're getting that value. You're kind of like, at the end of the day, like, if she ends up being 2 mana 2/2, when she dies, make a 1/1 with lifelink, that's like perfectly fine. And kind of what you're doing. I think you could justify running like Tristani as the helm of this deck, if you kind of want that more top end, like heavy stuff. And granted, this is also kind of being in place before like the meta really evolves. We don't know how the meta is going to shake out, what like the dominant commanders are going to be, and how I shift how we do it. But this is my first take on Amara. But So essentially, she's just kind of like this. She is not the linchpin of this deck, and that is like for 1v1. I feel that is kind of important because it's they're like either your commander needs to be very powerful and like really like kind of like almost win you the game if it sticks around a turn, or you need to be like, okay, my commander's fine, and like having her is great. Always having this 2-drop to slot in is fantastic, but I don't rely on her. So that's kind of the place I am with what her purpose is in this deck. Well, let's jump right into just kind of the nitty-gritty details. And first up, we're running forests. We're running 9 forests. This deck is running 23 lands, and I haven't tested it too much. I want to adjust the mana base a little bit. I might want to go down a few lands, just because I think it's maybe running a little bit of high of a land count, but it's probably fine. Well, it's running 23 lands plus Flower Flourish, so it's kind of like 24-ish lands, and a few ramp sources, so it's like, I feel like it's the right number, but until I can like start like doing some testing with it, because like I don't feel like doing like building this paper and testing it or whatever, and I don't believe there's any Brawl Leagues on Magic Online right now, and I don't have anything in Standard on Magic Online right now, but 9 forests, 8 plains, or it might be 8 forests and 7 plains. It's one of those two. Link in the description to the deck list either way, so if you want to check that out. Then just your standard fixing, all your Miscellaneous fixing, because it's like, fixing isn't that great for LA colors right now. I mean, it's not that much worse than enemy colors, but running Blossoming Sands, Miscellaneous Guildgate, Temple Garden, and Feeble Passage as kind of like your main fixing lands, and of course Command Tower. Because remember, you have some Brawl exclusive cards. We're also running Castle Ardenvale as a single utility for land, just because it's a token deck, and Castle Ardenvale is decent, and very low opportunity cost to actually play. I will say though that like, I'm not running the green castle, because Castle Gambrig, like, it's just the ramp one, but it ramps you in mono green, and most of the stuff that we want, like, most of our 6-and-up trucks are either gold or mono white, so it's like, that doesn't actually help us. So I'm not running the green castle in this one. So first up, we have a few ramp cards. Notably, I am not using Arcane Signet, the brand new like poster child of like the new Brawl decks, just because we really don't need the ramp, and I mostly like all the creatures here that I'm using to ramp are also just decent bodies, so I'm not really using that for that purpose. But we got Cerulean Caretaker, which is a 1 green for an 0/3 defender. And you can tap her and tap an untapped creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. She's in the deck both for ramp, but also the fact that she's one of the few repeatable ways in Standard to tap Amara without putting her into combat. Yeah, there's Convoke stuff, but that's usually one off, but she can do this once she's down. You can even tap Amara the turn she comes down when she's summoning sick with her. But she comes down, and essentially it just turns Amara into this engine, making a guy every turn. And honestly, this is one of the cards you want to look for the most in your opening hand. Running Paradise Druid, you might say, why are you not using Leafkin Druid? Like, you're a good white deck, Leafkin Druid will tap for 2 mana. But I really like the fact that Paradise Druid also is like a decent body that can attack with, where it's like, late game, you draw Leafkin Druid is often dead. And yeah, some of like the Anthem effects and stuff like do make it somewhat effective, but I just like the fact that Paradise Druid can just turn sideways when she needs to, and she's also like, the hexproof is notable for bolting the bird and whatnot. That said, honestly, I wouldn't mind Paradise Druid being kind of a lightning rod, but yeah. And then we have Feyebro Elder, which is the Celestia for essentially 2/2 vigilance that tap it to add 2 mana. So it is an okay body that also adds a lot of mana, and it's mostly just like a slightly better ramp source. But I wanted to have my ramp on creatures because that's kind of where we want to be. In favor of Elders here just because it's a little bit better, and the turn 3, then I can go turn 6 like Harmonious Argon or some of these big spells. That is the 3 mana that is a double ramp. That's why I'm running it. But otherwise we're not running that much ramp because like our top end, our curve tops out at about 6. And there's only a few 6 drops in the set. I just realized I had the wrong image of this card. This is like the booster thing with a little stamp on it. And then finally for our mana, we have Flower and Flourish, which is most of the time you're casting this for the flower side, which just kind of smooths that you pay Celestia and you get a forest or plains, and you get to play it and essentially cycle. It essentially is forest and plain cycling. And Flourish on the other side is kind of just like, hey, if you have a top in, it is a decent finisher. So it's just kind of like, it's this dual purpose card. I mean, it is a split card. It's by definition one dual purpose, like it's dual purpose by definition. But it's there. You honestly wouldn't run a Celestia deck without this card because this card is very good. Alright, so next up we have Hasta Marshal. So we're getting into our token creators. Like, this is the bread and butter of the deck. We just want to make a bunch of tokens, get in there, and go wide as fast as possible before we get to one of our finishers to really just kill our opponent. We just want to keep going wider than our opponent, and yeah, that's about it. But Hasta Marshal, it's a 1-mana 1/1, and whenever he and 2 other creatures that you control attack, you make a 1/1 with lifelink. In many ways, this is kind of acting as like kind of like a second Amara that, like, yeah, you'll attack with him, he'll die, like you'll make a guy, he'll die eventually, and that's fine. Where he's not as good as an Amara, but he's fine. Like, it's a redundant effect. And you know, like, you can get turned on like turn 2, like turn 3 theoretically if you have like a Raise Alarm, but he's usually going down that turn, oftentimes, unless they're running a very slow deck. But yeah. And then similar reason, we're also running Hunted Witness, which just is 1/1 that when he dies he makes 1/1, and just kind of that establish a board state even if I die, because like the weakness of this deck, like any aggro deck, is board wipes, and just like Singleton, I think one of the strongest archetypes of this format will be just long game control. And they will be running lots of board wipes, and that is kind of what you're trying to go under, and this helps you get like a little bit of a reach around board wipes. Next up we're running a Lovestruck Beast, which is, its 1 mana side is just, it makes a 1/1, and then later at 3 mana you get a 5/5 that can't attack unless you control 1/1, which is really not super big of a problem, but notably with any of our Anthem effects we'll turn that off, and you won't be able to attack for them anymore. But generally just like the 5/5, if you even gets them back a couple times, like 1 or 2 times, that's perfectly fine. And I mean, you already got 2 creatures out of them, so yeah. Hero of Precinct 1, as we go into our 2-drops, which is the 2-mana 2/2, that whenever you cast a multicolor spell, make a 1/1. There's a fair few multicolored spells. It's not like an actual like hero deck where every card we're having is usually gold except for our heroes. But the fact that our commander is cheap and is a gold card, and there's some other stuff, and it generates enough value that you're usually getting 1 or 2 humans out of this at minimum. So it's pretty much there. It's like pretty much like I looked at all the cards that made 2 or more bodies and just kind of chose like which ones are actually the best. We got Raise the Alarm, which is just the 2 mana make 2 1/1s at instant speed, which is nice. There's not much to say. It's not flashy. Like, when it comes to a token card, a token generating card, this is like the quintessential token generating card. We got Iron Root Warlord, who is a 3 mana X5 where X is equal to the number of creatures you control. And you can dump mana into him to make 1/1s, where he's not really there for making 1/1s, he's mostly there to just be this big body. He should honestly probably be in a different section. But yeah, it's just kind of like, yeah, not much else to say. He just can grow, actually be quite decently sized. Rally for the Throne. It's essentially a Raise the Alarm that costs 1 more mana, and honestly for even 1 more mana, like, it's instant speed. And it has some life gain there for like any like aggro mirrors, which isn't terrible. You know, it's just fine. Sworn Companions, similar thing, 3 mana, but this one they have lifelink for the exchange of sorcery speed. But again, it's just like, we're just trying to go wide. These are like the bread and butter pieces that are going to help you go wide. At 4 mana, we have Conclave Cavalier, which is the 4 mana 4/4 Vigilance that splits into 2 mana 2/2s with Vigilance when it dies. And this is kind of like a very good like again, another like board wipe insurance card, where it will leave you with it the same amount of power on board after it dies. Got a Turlo Ketra. Like, now we're getting to like the big flashy ends, like the stuff that you don't really see in like kind of like the refined decks that are like you're running in standard, because curves are a little bit higher because life totals are higher, and sometimes you just need these like threats that won't go away and to deal with it. And Oketra's one of those. The 5 mana 3/6 double strike. There's a fair amount of anthems that the double strike actually scales kind of well, and on all your creature casts you get a 4/4 token. And it has the put it back into the top 3 cards of your library that all the gods do. But it's just one of those cards where it's like, it's just like kind of just like a raw power card that, you know, it will just help you finish the game. I considered running Ronus, but I actually decided against it just because the doubling power wasn't as powerful as some of the other effects we could be running that like kind of like, because most of the things that were like doubling the power of like, oh, it's +1/+1, and there are cheaper effects that do that. And finally we have the March of the Multitudes, one of my favorite cards in Standard right now, but it's the X green white white for an instant with Convoke that makes X 1/1 green soldiers. Essentially you count up all the mana, how much mana do you have, how many creatures do you have, subtract 3, make that many tokens. This is the card that requires a lot of counting, but it has some potential for some very good plays, so it's just a good card. It's just like one of those reasons that you want to be in Celestia over like some other good white decks. Like, I will concede that probably one of the better good white commanders is honestly like Alayla or full Preserver, the one who makes fairies whenever you like cast artifacts and enchantments. And I feel like that's almost a better good white commander. But like this is one of those reasons why you might want to be that in Celestia rather than Esper or trying to do something in one of the other color combos. And now we're on to kind of like, okay, so we have a bunch of tokens. We now need to like pump them up and really punch through and actually like finish off the job. We're running a Pledge of Unity, which is just kind of like a general buff my team, gain some life. Mostly we're here for the +1 counter. Life gain's okay against like aggro mirrors, and even like mid-rangey stuff is like can be relevant at that point. But it's just fine. Now a better version of this is Unbreakable Formation, which is the 3 mana instant that gives creatures indestructible end of turn, and it also puts counters on them if you cast them during your main phase. This is notable because it's one of those things that's actually really hard to use. It's like, do you think your opponent has a board wipe? Do I want to save this for when they are going to board wipe? Or do I want to save this for just my main phase, like, and just get like the counters and punch it in? And that's always like a hard choice for me. Like, I typically use it in my main phase close to dead. I will say that the hardest part of this deck, and I think its greatest weakness, is that this deck does not have great reach. It doesn't really have the ability to give your stuff haste very well. One of the early iterations I was running Crashing Drawbridge, but I cut it just because it didn't do enough besides like that last bit of reach, which is sometimes relevant, but I just felt it wasn't getting there. But yeah, so it's protecting yourself from board wipes is very important, and this is really the only way we have to do that right now. We have a Johnny the Greathearted, who is just a very similar effect again, -2 to put a counter on all your team, but you can do it twice and stick around a little bit, so he's more of a lasting board presence more than those other two. Tristani both makes tokens and pumps your team. I mean, there's not much to say. It's a Tristani. So she's Tristani. Yeah, so yeah, no, 5 mana 1/4, pumps your team, makes 2 1/1s. The stealing stuff clause isn't super relevant. I mean, there's a fair amount of stuff in that deck, and like that in the standard that does take your stuff and play it, and that actually is quite relevant sometimes. It's so beautiful when someone command the Dreadswords or Tristani. It's just like, You did not read that card, did you? Oh, and all those other stuff you got from my yard else was there. It's a great feeling. I highly recommend playing against an opponent who will command the Dreadhorde or just Trustani. It feels exquisite. And now, as a new one, we have Harmonious Archon, which is a 6-mana 4/5 that gives all your non-Archon creatures, which is essentially all of your creatures, base power and toughness 3/3. And most of our deck is 1/1s, so essentially, in many ways, this will triple the power of most of your board. And Winter's Battlefield makes 2 1/1s, so it also makes another 6 power. So it on its own, it's 10 power on the board. And yes, it will pump up your opponent's small creatures too, but you should have more creatures than your opponent, so you're just going to go wide and have a great time punching your opponent in the face. And then finally, for like kind of like the buffs, we have the Circle of Loyalty. This deck isn't running that many knights, but even for 6 mana with a little bit of ramp, creatures control +1/+1. That's not bad. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, you make a 2/2. And like I said, Amara is small. Amara will die a lot, and you can cast Amara very cheaply, and getting a 2/2 along with her is very nice. And for those late games, you can just pay 4 mana and tap it to make a 2/2, which will be a 3/3. So it's just kind of like, it does a little bit of it. This is like kind of one of your like late game contingencies, especially since like with rotation we lost things like the Immortal Sun and stuff like that. So this is kind of your late game. I need to finish the game, and my board got wiped a few times, but like if this sort of Circle of Loyalty sticks, I can close out this game. Right, on to removal. First up, we're running a Flaxen Intruder, who is like the 1 mana 1/2, but will destroy a artifact enchantment when it connects. And you know, if you are in the late game and you don't have anything to destroy really, you can just pay 7 mana to make 3 2/2s, and that's perfectly fine as well. So the fact that early game she's just a creature who can sometimes hit something relevant, and late game that's actually a decent amount of power. So it's like across 8 power you get 4 creatures, and that's quite nice. Giant Killer, which is just a which you're mostly running for Chop Down, which is the 2 and a white, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. But also it comes down as a creature that can tap creatures, which is sometimes nice for like a big thing that is like just gobbling up your 1/1s as you get in. Glass Casket, just a small removal spell, kind of like a small O-ring, because sometimes you just need to like take care of like an opponent's like commander if they're running like a low to the ground commander or some other early threat, and you just sometimes gotta deal with it. And there isn't that much like good removal on these colors right now. Hanged Executioner, which is it's a 3 mana 1/1 that also makes another 1/1, so it goes wide a bit, but you also can pay 4 mana to exile target creature, so it's just kind of a spare exile thing. For the most part though, it's actually also just good removal Lightning Rod itself, because people don't like to play, it's like on board, it's almost like removal for removal, because like people don't want to play their creatures into this, because it's like, oh, it's an on-board removal spell, so it gets like Assassin's Trophy or something, and you're like, yes, I'd rather you hit that than anything that's relevant. And Knight of Autumn, you're mostly using her as a Reclamation Sage, 3 mana 2/1 that, ignore the other 2 modes, you want to destroy target artifact or enchantment. But if you need to, you can put 2 counters on it and just get a 3 mana 4/3, but you mostly want to use her as a Reclamation Sage. Prison Realm, very nice for hitting Planeswalkers. You know what, the Scry isn't bad, because that is one weakness of this deck, where it does not really draw that many cards. Like, I'm not running Camaraderie just because it's just like, that's just too slow. Granted, I would change a lot of how this deck is built. I would slow it down a lot once multiplayer comes out, because then I'll be running things like Camaraderie and like some like the green card draw, like Keeper of Fables, and even like Return of the Wild Speaker. Just like get these cards. There's a reason I'm not using Return of the Wild Speaker is because a lot of the tokens all of a sudden are also humans, and the fact that he only pumps non-humans means that it's too inconsistent. It's also a bit expensive for the effect in this deck, because you're not really using the card draw side at all. And finally we have Conclave Tribunal, which is just the O-ring that hits everything and has Convoke, so why wouldn't you run this in a Miscellaneous deck? Honestly, most white decks that are creature-based, you should run this in. It's very good. Oh, and actually, finally, Tulsimar, Friend of Wolves. It's just some creature, mostly using Voja, so it's just creature removal. But he's also 2 creatures across that and is a decent amount, so yeah. Also, what a good doggo. And finally, we're just into the miscellaneous section. We got Charming Prince, so it's a 2-mana 2/2. That was scry 1, or choose 1. First one is scry 2. If you're playing this turn 2, although for the most part you won't play this turn 2, most of the time you're playing Amara on turn 2, but this scry 2 can help like clear out some of your extra draws. Typically you're not choosing the gain 3 life, and the blink effect actually isn't terrible because a lot of the things that you're doing actually like make tokens on ETB, and just repeating that effect sometimes is nice. And so late game you want to like refresh something or like filter your extra draws, and early on usually like just filtering your draws. Once Upon a Time, because I mean it's a green deck and this card is very good. It's just kind of like this commune effect that's sometimes free. It's Once Upon a Time. You're running a green deck in current standard. You're running Once Upon a Time. Tome of Legends, which is a 2-mana artifact that enters the battlefield with a page counter. Whenever your campaigner enters the battlefield or attacks, which Amara is doing a lot, you put another page counter on it, and you pay 1, tap it to remove a page counter from it to draw a card. So this is just a really nice, like, kind of a very efficient like card draw engine, and Amara is going to be triggering this constantly, so it's a great like in-game contingency that is honestly cheap enough that I'm willing to run it in just kind of this more aggro-focused like 1v1 version. Woodland Champion, which is just a 2-mana 2/2 that it's whenever tokens enter battlefield grows. It's just a dumb vanilla creature essentially that can actually grow out of control reasonably quickly and just kind of like keep smashing face, and they either have to remove it or keep abyssing their creatures into it. Running a Gideon, mostly like the 3-mana 4/4, and like he himself is like a decent body just getting in there. But also just the ability to give like Amara indestructible, the fact that you can swing into like boards and keep making 1/1s is very useful. And he himself can really get in for a fair amount of damage, and I mean eventually can also just start exiling stuff if you need to, but mostly just kind of like he doesn't really do anything particular. He like does like 3 different things sort of well the deck kind of once, and that overall makes a very good card. Divine Visitation. We're making lots of 1/1s, but what if they were 4/4s? Sure, it's a Nombo with Harmonious Archon, but what do you do? It's not the end of the world, but yeah, Divine Visitation is just very good. And yeah, it's a bit slower compared to some other stuff, and I think there's an argument for not running Divine Visitation, just because, yeah, let's realistically, like, oftentimes will be 5 mana, you'll be out of stuff, but I mean, since you have Amara as your commander, and you have that, essentially the fact that every time you cast Amara and attack with her, that it's also making 4/4 now, that's reasonable enough. And finally for the deck we have Venerated Loxodon, because this card is good. I mean, I like my 0 mana, add 9 power to the board. That sounds very good. Also taps Amara without having to actually bring her into combat. And a bunch of other stuff. Venerated Loxodon is just a good card. Not much to say. It's just good elephant friend. That is the deck. So yeah, no, I'm really excited for it. Like, I feel like I could use some tweaks, and we'll like, of course, like all of these will need to be tweaked a little bit depending on like how the meta shakes out. But I'm really excited for Brawl. And I mean, since like Brawl, like at least for like except for the like the occasional like Chronicle event stuff, will mostly be like just direct challenges. So it'll be kind of almost more like Commander, where it's like, what is your maybe setting up a new system for the kind of like a alert system on my Discord for like, hey, you can, so when Brawl comes out, be like paying everyone who wants to be paying for this, be like, hey, is anyone up for like playing some Brawl? And I'll do that for some other formats on Arena and whatnot too. So just kind of get it kind of like a Brawl community on there going a bit, because I'm super excited about it. I'm also going to put some a poll in the description below for talking about some of the other commanders I'm looking to do, and let me know what you want to see next. Because it's like I have like 5 decks or so of like commanders I'm looking to do, and would people be interested in more decks of them? Yeah, no, link in the description below. And yeah, no, I'm super excited about it. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful night. I hope you have wonderful dreams. And as always, may your story smile upon you.